Have you ever ruined somebody else's life? What happened? Story 1. Back in high school, my buddy Jason and I both had feelings for the same girl. I let my jealousy get the better of me and manipulated the situation. I told him she wasn't into him, even though she kind of was, and suggested he pursue another girl, Lena, who had been flirting with him for a while. They ended up dating, and not long after, she got pregnant. Jason dropped out of school during senior year, and last I heard, he's working at a small-town supermarket. We talked about a year ago. He sounded drained, living in a rocky relationship and trying to raise a kid he never planned for. The worst part? He never blamed me, even though I intentionally nudged him in that direction. I feel horrible every time I think about it. I ruined his trajectory for nothing, because the girl we both liked, she never gave me the time of day. I didn't even get what I wanted. It was a dumb, selfish move that led to real consequences for someone else. I hope he finds some peace, even though I probably don't deserve to hope that for him. Story 2. During college, I showed a friend how to torrent files because he said he wanted to download a few movies and music albums. I didn't think much of it at the time. A few months later, he got arrested for having illegal content on his hard drive, child exploitation material. I was horrified. I never imagined he'd use what I taught him for something so vile. Even though I know I didn't make him do it, I can't shake the guilt. He ended up in prison, and I've heard he's serving a long sentence. People tell me it's not my fault, that handing someone a tool doesn't mean you're responsible for how they use it. But I can't help feeling like I opened that door. If I hadn't taught him how to torrent, maybe he wouldn't have gone down that path. I know he's responsible for his choices, and he deserves the punishment. Still, the idea that I played a role in starting that chain of events makes my stomach turn. I haven't taught anyone how to torrent since, and I probably never will. You never know what someone might do with the knowledge you give them. Story 3. At a party I wasn't even invited to, just tagged along with a friend, I ended up doing something I regret deeply. The house was packed, probably 50 or so people crammed into a mid-sized space. I grabbed a beer and a tube of chips and chilled for a bit. Once I finished the chips, I noticed the table was full, so I lazily set the empty can on the floor. A few minutes later, I heard shouting and glass shattering. I followed the commotion and saw a guy lying motionless in the middle of a broken glass coffee table, blood pooling beneath him. Someone near me whispered that he tripped on a Pringles can and crashed through the table. The guy ended up paralyzed from the waist down and could barely talk afterward. I didn't say a word. No one knew it was my can. But the guilt eats at me. It was such a small, careless act. Just not putting a can in the trash that led to someone's life-altering injury. Ever since that night, I've been obsessive about cleaning up after myself. I never told anyone it was me. Sometimes I wonder if I should have. Maybe I still should. Story 4. I once told a friend that his girlfriend was seeing someone else. He didn't believe me at first, but a few months later, she married the other guy. Oddly enough, he ended up finding real love later on. He's married now and seems happy. Still, both of them, him and his now ex, hold a grudge against me. I guess nobody likes the person who exposes harsh truths, even if it's for their own good. I thought I did the right thing, but it complicated everything. We used to be close. After that, he drifted away, and we haven't really talked since. I heard from mutual friends that they blame me for how everything played out, even though she was already cheating. I didn't make her do it, I just pointed it out. I know it's natural to be upset when your life gets flipped upside down, but sometimes doing the honest thing still makes you the villain in someone else's story. Maybe if I'd kept quiet, things would have played out differently. Or maybe they'd be worse. I'll never know. I just hope he's genuinely happy now, even if he never speaks to me again. Story 5. As a financial dominatrix, I engage in a very niche kind of role play that sometimes involves consensual blackmail. One client, in particular, left a lasting impression. He was married, had 2 kids, and would call them leeches during our sessions. He drank heavily and shared disturbing things, confessing to sleeping with sex workers without protection and saying he never loved his children. The disgust I felt grew with every conversation. He had given me his wife's contact info as part of the blackmail element. Eventually, I decided to break the rules. I called her at work. She was a school administrator and told her everything. I had screenshots and audio logs. She cried but told me she appreciated my honesty. I blocked him on all platforms after that. Months later, he messaged me from a different number. His wife now made him sleep in the guest room, and his kids wouldn't go near him. Then he thanked me and deposited $1,000 into my account, saying what I did was the most exciting thing he'd ever experienced. I felt sick. He was a monster, and I don't regret exposing him. But I've never done anything like that again. Once was enough. Story 6. Back in college, a classmate asked me if I could hook him up with a little weed. I didn't sell, but I knew someone who did. My buddy Chris. I introduced them, thinking nothing of it. A few weeks later, Chris's apartment got raided. Turns out the guy I introduced him to was a confidential informant wearing a wire. The sting wasn't even about that one deal. They'd built a case over multiple transactions. Chris ended up getting expelled, lost his apartment, and basically had to start his life over. I never saw it coming. I still feel awful. I didn't mean to set him up. I was just trying to help someone score a dime bag. I later found out the informant had been arrested himself and agreed to cooperate to get a lighter sentence. That's probably why he went after Chris. I don't know if Chris ever found out it was me who introduced them, but I've avoided most mutual friends out of guilt. I wish I had just said no that day. A small favor turned into a huge mess. I thought I was being helpful, but I ended up ruining someone's college career. Story 7. In high school, there was a teacher who rubbed a lot of us the wrong way. He was shady around female students and constantly tried to sabotage the theater teacher behind the scenes. One day in class, he snapped at me for waiting to use a saw during stagecraft. I lost my temper and went off on him, calling him out for his creepy behavior and backhanded politics. I expected to get suspended, but I had a clean record, so they just sent me back to class. Weirdly, my outburst got others to speak up. Over the next year, more students came forward. After I graduated, someone told me he harassed a girl during class, and the entire class reported him. That same week, he was fired. I later heard his wife left him too. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a sense of justice. I also slashed his tires once. Not proud of that, but I was young and angry. He deserved to be held accountable. Even now, I feel like I helped take down a bad person who had no business teaching. I just hope he never ends up in a classroom again. Story 8. When I was 13, a quiet boy named Evan started hanging around our friend group. He was sweet, shy, and very anti-drugs. I, on the other hand, was already into smoking and drinking. What I didn't know was that Evan had a big crush on me. By the time I was 16, I sobered up and started dating someone else. But Evan, desperate to be close to me, had started getting high with us outside school. After I changed, he didn't. He kept using. It's been years now, and last I heard, Evan is struggling, jobless, addicted, and sometimes homeless. I didn't force him to start using, but I can't help but feel partly responsible. He followed me into that lifestyle, and I walked away while he stayed. That kind of guilt doesn't go away easily. I wonder if things would have been different if I had noticed his feelings sooner or been a better influence. Maybe he would have stayed clean. I hope he finds help someday. I don't know if he still thinks of me, but I think about him often. It's hard not to when someone's life unraveled in your shadow. Story 9. Back in high school, I had a friend, Kevin, who quietly had feelings for me. I didn't realize it until later. I was 16 when I started sleeping with another close friend, Mark. We weren't dating, just a casual thing. Everyone in our group, including Kevin, knew. Mark and I would sometimes drink or smoke at parties, nothing extreme. Kevin was always the straight-edge type. No drinking, no smoking. But at some point, he started to change. I think he believed I liked bad boys and wanted to fit that image. He began drinking heavily and chain-smoking. By 17, he was an alcoholic. Now that we're 20, he's doing better, has a solid girlfriend and barely drinks, but occasionally he still relapses when he's down. We're still close, but I carry a lot of guilt. I never asked him to change for me, but I think he did it hoping I'd notice him. It's heartbreaking to think I might have contributed to that. I never meant for him to hurt himself over me. I just hope he continues to heal and realizes his value doesn't depend on changing for anyone, especially not someone who was never looking at him that way. Story 10. I introduced my college roommate, Alex, to World of Warcraft during our second year. He was studying biochemistry and had a promising internship at a medical lab. At first, it was just a fun way to blow off steam, but he got hooked fast, skipped classes, blew off his lab work, and eventually dropped the internship. He became a full-on WoW addict. After graduation, I moved on, but he stayed behind, literally. Last I heard, he was still living in his mom's basement, unemployed, playing WoW every day. I feel a strange mix of guilt and disbelief. I didn't mean for the game to take over his life. I thought we were just bonding over something fun. It's wild how such a harmless introduction spiraled into something so damaging. I've since picked the game back up myself, but I keep a tight leash on it. I can't help but wonder what Alex's life might have been like if I hadn't shown him that game. Maybe he would have been a doctor or a researcher by now. I know people make their own choices, but part of me still thinks I handed him the escape hatch he never came back from. Story 11. At a party years ago, I ran into a girl I used to date. She seemed flirty but made it clear nothing was going to happen. She had a boyfriend. I respected that and left without pushing anything. Later that night, as I was walking to my car, I was jumped by her boyfriend and one of his friends. They beat me up pretty badly. A few months later, I crossed paths with some sketchy guys I used to see around, guys with bad reputations. We were at a bar when they asked if I knew where her boyfriend lived. Apparently, he had also made enemies of them. I didn't press for details. I casually mentioned where the girl lived. That same week, he disappeared. It's been nearly 2 decades, and no one's heard from him since. I saw the girl again about 5 years ago. She recognized me, turned pale, and walked out. I'm not saying I caused what happened, but I might have pointed people in the right direction. I don't lose sleep over it, but I do wonder what she thinks happened. Maybe she blames me. Maybe she's right to. I'll never really know. Story 12. Back in 2006, I worked at a tech repair shop. A customer brought in a desktop that wouldn't boot and asked us to back up his data before a Windows reinstall. He paid for both services and I started the routine process. But when I accessed the hard drive on our test computer, I couldn't find the usual folders. So I asked a colleague for help with the search tool. The results pulled up a folder with explicit file names, clearly illegal. As soon as I saw what it was, I called over my manager. He took one look and phoned the police. It turned out the guy had been downloading child pornography through LimeWire. Months later, after I'd already started a new job, I was subpoenaed and had to give a deposition. He ended up getting over 3 years in federal prison. Even though we were just doing our job, it was surreal to be part of something like that. I often wonder if he thought he could get away with it because we were just geek techs. But he messed up. We did the right thing. That one folder sealed his fate. Story 13. I teach at a university, and one semester I gave a student a lower grade than he expected. It wasn't personal, he just didn't meet the criteria. A few weeks later, I found a review of myself on Rate My Professor that read, "Professor, my name ruined my life." First, I laughed it off. But then I started thinking, what if he missed a scholarship or lost financial aid because of that grade? What if it snowballed into something worse? I'll never know what exact chain of events led him to feel that way, and maybe he's just being dramatic. But sometimes I wonder if a single grade really could have been the tipping point. It's a strange feeling, knowing something you considered routine might have meant everything to someone else. I don't think I did anything wrong. Still, I haven't forgotten that line. I try to be more transparent in my grading now, more communicative. Maybe it's not about avoiding guilt. Maybe it's about being aware that your actions, however small, can echo loudly in someone else's life. Story 14. During undergrad, a girl I knew got into my student account and dropped several of my classes. It messed up my financial aid and nearly derailed my entire year. Luckily, I kept good digital records, IP logs, browser history, emails. I compiled all the evidence and presented it to the university's Student Conduct Board. She was expelled and never finished her computer science degree. I don't regret it at all. She tried to ruin my life over something petty, because I dated a guy her friend liked. We went on 2 dates and realized we weren't compatible. That was it. But apparently that was enough to make her lose it. She told people I dated him just to spite her friend. It was ridiculous. I didn't even know her friend was interested when he asked me out. I tried to be civil even after the breakup. But once she tampered with my academic record, I had no choice but to fight back. She gambled with someone else's future and lost. I don't feel bad. Actions have consequences, and she learned that the hard way. Story 15. Back in high school, I met a guy through mutual friends from a nearby school. He introduced himself as Craig, but with the music playing loudly, I thought he said crud. I laughed and said, "Crud? Really?" He looked confused. I apologized immediately, but the name sort of stuck in my head. Years later, I walked into a local auto shop and saw a familiar face working there. He turned around, and sure enough, his shirt had crud stitched on the front. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel horrified. It hit me that maybe that nickname followed him all these years because of one dumb misunderstanding. I never meant for it to stick. I thought it was just a funny misheard moment, but somehow it became part of his identity. I still wonder if he remembers that moment too. It's strange how something so small, just a misheard name, could change how someone is known. I hope he embraced it and wasn't teased too badly. But I'll never forget the feeling of seeing that name on his shirt and realizing I might have accidentally branded someone for life. Story 16. When I was 14, my friend confided in me that she had been sleeping with her best friend's father for over a year. It hit me like a brick. I didn't know what to do, but the weight of that secret became unbearable. After band practice one night, I broke down and told another friend, who insisted I go to our band instructor. He reported it to the school and the authorities. That following Monday, I was pulled into the principal's office and had to recount everything to school officials and the police. Later that week, the news reported the man's arrest. She denied everything and said I was lying. I don't know what came of it. We never spoke again. I sometimes wonder if I made things worse, but deep down, I know I did what was right. He was a predator and she was a kid. I just couldn't carry that secret anymore. Even if she hates me for it, I hope she realizes one day that I didn't do it out of malice. I did it because someone had to. Story 17. When I was 6, my sister and I were skipping rocks by a creek near our home. I picked up a larger rock, trying to impress her by throwing it far. As I swung it behind my head, it slipped from my hand and hit her in the back of the skull. She cried and bled, and my mom rushed us home. She was diagnosed with a concussion the next day. 6 months later, she started having seizures. Doctors couldn't pinpoint a cause, but I've always believed that accident triggered it. She went through years of medications, tests, and hospital visits. Things got better for a while, no seizures for nearly a decade. Then, after a minor car accident, they came back worse than ever. She lost her independence, had to give up school, and moved back in with our mom. No one's ever told me it was my fault, but deep down, I think they're just trying to protect me. The memory of her screaming, holding her head, blood in her hair, it's burned into my mind. I was just a kid, but that doesn't stop the guilt. I'd give anything to take that moment back. Story 18. During my freshman year in college, I got along great with my dorm neighbor, Tyler. We were close, so we agreed to room together the next year. As the year progressed, I decided to transfer schools for personal reasons. I didn't tell anyone until late in the semester. Tyler ended up getting paired with a random roommate who, from what I heard, was a nightmare. Creepy, loud, and just unpleasant. We lost touch after I left. A mutual friend once told me Tyler was pretty bitter and talked badly about me afterward. It's been over a decade, but I still feel bad about it. It wasn't intentional. I just didn't want to say anything until my plans were finalized. Funny enough, I'm married now, and my wife's friend is marrying one of Tyler's old college buddies. Turns out Tyler is the best man. The wedding is this weekend, and I'm dreading the potential awkwardness. I just want to shake his hand and move on. But part of me wonders if he still carries that resentment. Maybe he's let it go. Maybe not. Either way, I hope we can be cool again. Story 19. When I was 13, I was abused by an older member of a religious community, a Jehovah's Witness. He was engaged at the time. Years later, I tracked down his fiance's contact information and told her everything. I don't know if they broke up, but I know she heard what he did. I didn't want to stay silent, even though I could have. I never got justice through the legal system, but I figured she at least deserved to know who she was about to marry. I don't know if she believed me. I never heard back. But I live with the hope that I stopped something worse from happening. It wasn't about revenge. It was about trying to prevent another child from going through what I did. Some people don't understand the weight of silence, how it can eat at you every day. Sharing the truth felt like lifting a small part of that weight. I don't expect praise or closure. I just hope she made the right decision, and that he's never allowed near kids again. Story 20. After high school, my ex-girlfriend messaged me asking if I still had the nude photos we took around prom. I did, and she wanted them back. I sent them, thinking it was really her. A week later, I got another message, this time from the real account. Someone had impersonated her and printed the photos at the Walmart where she worked. She was furious and accused me of leaking them. She even filed a civil suit. I was stunned. I explained that I thought the earlier message was from her. After showing her the original messages and timestamps, she believed me. The lawsuit was dropped. Strangely, we reconnected after that and dated for a couple more years before going our separate ways again. Could have been a total disaster, but we salvaged something from it. Still, I'm more cautious online now. You never know who's really behind a message, and a small mistake can snowball into something life-changing. I'll never forget the anxiety of seeing that lawsuit notice. It was a harsh lesson in digital privacy and in trust. Story 21. During basic training, we had to complete a counter-IED, improvised explosive device course. One guy in our unit, small, wiry, and clearly overwhelmed, was visibly shaken by it. He confided in me that he didn't think he could handle the pressure. I told him bluntly, "If you can't hack it, maybe it's better to quit now than break later." I wasn't trying to be cruel, just honest. But instead of quitting, he did something unthinkable. He charged at one of our most intimidating drill sergeants. The guy was a green beret built like a tank. The fight didn't last long. We were ordered to run laps while they dealt with it, but word spread fast. He'd been dishonorably discharged for assaulting a superior. That kind of discharge follows you for life. I felt sick. I didn't tell him to fight anyone, but I had told him to quit, and maybe he took that as a final push. I didn't mean to break him. I still wonder what became of him. One moment of poor judgment, and everything he worked for was gone. I didn't throw the punch, but I might have lit the fuse, and that's something I've never been able to fully shake. Story 22. My mother stayed with my abusive father for years because of me. After the divorce, she didn't go back to her family in India. She stayed in the US for my sake, knowing I had better opportunities here. But starting over alone took a toll. She went back to school, took out loans, and racked up debt she's still paying off. Student loans, especially the federal kind, don't go away easily. She now works a job she doesn't love and lives in a country she never really wanted to stay in long term. She's an American citizen now and has paid into Social Security for years, but if she leaves before retirement, she risks losing access to it. And if she stops paying her loans, her financial stability crumbles. She's effectively trapped. I'm grown now and doing well, but I know she's still living with the consequences of choosing me over her own freedom. She never says it, but I can tell she's tired of the debt, the distance from family, and the life she didn't plan for. I didn't ask to be born, but I still feel like I cost her everything. That guilt sticks with me every day. Story 23. Back in high school, my brother started dating a girl I used to be close with, let's call her Emily. We had a falling out after I asked for space when my grandmother passed away. She didn't take it well and accused me of using grief as an excuse to abandon her. I cut ties. After she started dating my brother, things got worse. She told our band director, a close friend of hers, to mess with me. That same director eventually got fired, probably not just because of her, but I always wondered. Then came the threats. She said she'd accuse me of abuse and that everyone would believe her. She started spreading rumors that I was physically assaulting her at school. My brother believed every word. Fortunately, I had saved messages proving everything. Her threats, her lies, even past claims that my brother had hit her, which I knew weren't true. I sat them both down and showed him the receipts. He was furious. Her social circle turned on her. She told me I ruined her life. Maybe I did, but I had to protect myself. I didn't want revenge, I wanted peace. She just wouldn't let me have it. Story 24. After my divorce, I found out the man my wife had been sleeping with was our son's PE teacher. It wasn't just an affair. Once she tried to end it, he started threatening her, saying he'd leak the private photos she had sent him to our son, his classmates, and their parents. That crossed a line I couldn't ignore. First, I got him fired from the school. Then I filed for a restraining order and hired a lawyer to explore civil charges. I had screenshots of the messages he sent, proof of blackmail. I sent them to his wife and parents. His wife later thanked me, saying it wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. She'd had enough. He was also on workers' comp for a knee injury, yet running a tree-cutting business on the side. I hired a private investigator, gathered evidence, and reported him for fraud. I don't feel guilty. If anything, I wish I'd done more. I don't hate my ex-wife. She's still our son's mother. But that man? I've made it my mission to see him held accountable. Not out of spite, but to make sure he never hurts another family like he did mine. Story 25. During my sophomore year, I got into an argument with a TA who had been making sexist jokes during lab. I reported him anonymously through the university's ethics channel. I didn't expect much to happen, but a month later he was gone. I later found out he was fired and blacklisted from teaching. He had been applying to PhD programs, and one of the schools rescinded their offer after learning about the complaint. I don't regret standing up, but I do sometimes wonder if I destroyed more than just his job. He was only a few years older than me, and maybe he just hadn't grown out of being a jerk yet. Still, what he said wasn't okay. I've had people tell me I did the right thing, and others say I should have just talked to him directly. I didn't. I clicked submit, walked away, and changed his entire future without ever having to face him. I don't know if that makes me brave or cowardly, but I do know that sometimes one moment of silence or one report can change everything for someone else. Story 26. I was 15 and angry at my friend's older brother. He'd made fun of me at school in front of everyone. I wanted revenge, so I told the school counselor that I had overheard him talking about selling pills. I made it all up. The counselor reported it, and the school contacted the police. They searched his locker and then his home. They didn't find drugs, but Child Protective Services got involved. His dad lost his job because the incident made the local news. They ended up moving out of state, and I never saw them again. I didn't understand the ripple effects of what I did until years later. Now I can't believe I destroyed a family just to feel better for a day. I don't know where they are, and I wouldn't blame him if he still hates me. I've tried to find him to apologize and failed. I live with that guilt every single day. What started as a petty act of revenge became the moment that changed someone's life forever. I ruined them because I couldn't handle a joke. Story 27. My cousin came to the US on a student visa but stopped going to classes after a semester. He was working under the table and living with us. I knew it was illegal, but he helped out around the house and watched my little brother, so no one really cared. One day, we got into a massive fight over something stupid. I think he used my charger without asking. In the heat of the moment, I called ICE and reported him anonymously. Less than a week later, he was picked up. Nobody knew it was me. He was sent back to a country he hadn't lived in since he was a teenager. He lost everything, his job, his friends, his life here. It's been years, and I've never told anyone the truth. Every time my family mentions how unfair it was, I feel like I'm choking on my own shame. I ruined his life over a phone charger. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. Sometimes I think about calling him and confessing, but I don't even know if he'd pick up. I don't deserve forgiveness. I just want him to be okay. Story 28. My coworker was having an affair. She used to brag about it during lunch breaks, telling us how her husband would never find out. I kept quiet until I saw her husband at a company event. He looked so proud of her, so happy. Something in me snapped. I found him on Facebook later that night and sent him screenshots of messages she'd sent in our group chat. He didn't reply, but a week later, she came into work sobbing. He had left her and taken the kids. She was being investigated for custody. She begged for forgiveness and asked why I did it. I told her I couldn't stomach the lies anymore. She ended up quitting. I heard she moved back in with her parents. I don't regret telling him. He deserved to know. But I still wonder if I crossed a line. Maybe it wasn't my place. Maybe I ruined her life when I should have just walked away. Sometimes the truth doesn't set people free. Sometimes it burns everything down. Story 29. We'd been inseparable since middle school. But everything changed when I found out he'd stolen nearly $2,000 from my bank account. He knew my PIN. He'd watched me use it 100 times. I confronted him and he cried, said it was for rent, that he'd pay me back. My parents pushed me to press charges, and I did. He was arrested. His job fired him and he dropped out of college soon after. He never repaid me. I tried to reach out years later, but he blocked me. I don't know what happened to him. I heard he bounced around between jobs, barely staying afloat. I didn't want to destroy him. I just wanted my money back. But I guess the justice system doesn't always separate theft from desperation. I think about him every time I enter my PIN. I miss who he was before the betrayal. But I also know he made that choice. I didn't ruin his life, he did. Right? Story 30. In 8th grade, I was jealous of a girl who was prettier, smarter, and more liked than me. So I started a rumor that she was sending nudes to older guys online. I even photoshopped fake screenshots and printed them out. The school launched an investigation. Her parents were horrified. She denied it all, but the damage was done. Kids whispered about her in the hallways. She stopped coming to school. By the end of the semester, she had transferred. I never saw her again. Years later, I found her on Instagram. She looked happy, but I wonder if she really is. I never apologized. I don't know what I'd say. Sorry I ruined your middle school years because I was insecure? It's pathetic, really. I was so desperate to feel superior that I destroyed someone else's peace. I still don't understand why no one questioned the screenshots. I guess people believe what they want to believe. I hope she's forgotten me. I hope she found people who saw her for who she really is. I'll carry the guilt of who I was back then for the rest of my life. Story 31. In high school, we dared each other to sneak into the teacher's lounge during lunch. My friend Mateo took the bait. He grabbed the master key from the janitor's cart when no one was looking and opened the door. We all laughed and took photos, but someone reported it and we were all questioned. I panicked and said it was Mateo's idea. I told them he pressured me. He got expelled. I only got detention. His parents were furious. They moved away a month later. I found out later he didn't get into the college he'd applied to. That expulsion followed him. I never told the truth. I kept my head down, finished school, and went to college. But I think about him all the time. One decision, one lie, and I took away his future. All because I was scared of getting in trouble. I don't know if he ever forgave me. I don't know if I deserve it anyway. Story 32. My younger sister was dating this guy who gave me bad vibes. He was older, too old, and always tried to act cool around me. One night, I went through her phone and found messages that crossed so many lines. I printed them and went straight to our parents. We called the police. He was arrested and charged with multiple offenses. My sister didn't talk to me for months. She said I destroyed her first love. She cried and screamed and told me I ruined her life, but I couldn't let her stay with someone who saw her as a conquest. Years later, she thanked me, quietly, once, but I still remember the fury in her eyes. I ruined what she thought was love, but I also saved her from someone who didn't deserve her. Sometimes doing the right thing means being hated for a while. That's a burden I'll carry. Story 33. There was a new kid in our class who cried a lot. He was small, quiet, and clearly dealing with stuff. One day, during gym, he broke down after missing a shot. I laughed and called him a baby. Others joined in. The next day, he wasn't at school. Then the next. Weeks passed. Eventually, we heard he transferred to a school across town. I felt sick. I didn't know his story. Maybe he was going through something terrible. But I made being at school even harder for him. I was just trying to seem tough to get a laugh. But that moment probably stuck with him. I can't undo it. I wish I could go back and be the one to sit next to him instead of mocking him. I ruined his sense of safety, all for a joke that wasn't even funny. Story 34. I wrote a paper for English class about inappropriate behavior. I based it on things our teacher had said, jokes that crossed a line, uncomfortable comments he made to female students. I turned it in without naming him, but my teacher read it and reported it to the administration himself, thinking I was calling someone else out. They investigated. Multiple girls came forward. He was fired. I didn't mean for that to happen. I wasn't trying to start a witch hunt. I just wanted to express how uncomfortable I felt. I still don't know if I did the right thing. He was a good teacher in other ways, and I wonder if he could have learned and changed. But maybe it was too late. Maybe he'd done too much damage. I didn't say a word during the investigation. I let the story unfold without me, and I still think about what that silence cost him. Story 35. My best friend in high school was diagnosed with schizophrenia during our senior year. At first, I tried to be supportive, but I was scared. He started acting differently, paranoid, confused, sometimes aggressive. I didn't understand mental illness back then. One day, after a particularly intense phone call, I stopped responding. I blocked him. I told myself it was for my own peace. Years later, I found out his condition worsened. He had no close friends left. His family couldn't handle him. He was institutionalized. And I never called. I never explained. I just disappeared. I don't know if I ruined his life, but I definitely abandoned him when he needed someone most. I thought I was protecting myself, but maybe all he needed was to know he wasn't alone. I live with that shame. I've learned more about mental health since then, and I wish I could go back and do it differently. But that window's closed. I ghosted a friend who couldn't help what he was going through, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Story 36. I worked in a marketing firm straight out of college. There was this guy, Sam, who was better than me at everything. He got praise from our boss, led projects, and had the kind of charisma I envied. I started spreading rumors. Small things at first. He took credit for work he didn't do, he flirts with clients, that sort of thing. I never thought it'd go far, but HR got involved. He was put on leave during investigation, and eventually let go. I acted surprised, even sympathetic. But inside, I felt powerful, until I saw him months later working at a tech store. He looked tired, defeated. He didn't recognize me, or maybe he did and just turned away. I got promoted soon after, but I never celebrated. That hollow feeling never left. I ruined his career because I couldn't handle being second best. I haven't told anyone. I don't think I ever will. But if Sam ever hears this, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what I did to you. Story 37. At a college party, I got wasted and ended up hooking up with someone. The next day, I remembered bits and pieces, nothing serious, I thought. Weeks later, I found out she got pregnant. She kept the baby, dropped out of school. I offered to help, but she didn't want anything from me. Said it was her choice. Still, I saw the toll it took on her. She was working 2 jobs, living with her parents, and trying to raise a kid on her own. I graduated, got a job, moved on. But I still check her social media sometimes. She looks exhausted in every photo. I ruined her plans, her degree, her freedom, all because I got drunk and didn't think. I don't even know if she wanted to keep the baby or felt like she had no other option. I'll never forget the moment she told me. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were empty. I didn't ruin her out of malice, but that doesn't make it any better. Sometimes carelessness is just as dangerous as cruelty. Story 38. In high school, I was in fierce competition with another student, Rachel, for a full-ride scholarship. We were neck and neck in GPA and extracurriculars. A week before the final decision, I saw her leave her laptop unattended in the library. I snooped, found an essay draft for the application and copied a few lines to my own. I submitted mine first. When hers went in, it flagged for plagiarism. She was disqualified. I got the scholarship. She didn't even fight back, just accepted it and moved on. But I know what I did. I stole her future. She ended up going to a community college while I went to a top-tier university for free. I graduated with no debt. She's still working retail to pay off loans. I've never told anyone, but the guilt eats away at me. Every time someone congratulates me on my hard work, I feel like a fraud. I didn't win because I was better. I won because I was willing to cheat, and I'll carry that stain forever. Story 39. Growing up, my older brother always got more attention. He was the golden child. When I got into trouble, I'd blame him to get the heat off me. I told my parents he was sneaking out, smoking, stealing. None of it was true. He tried to defend himself, but they believed me. Over time, their trust in him eroded. He grew bitter, distant. He left home at 18 and barely talks to any of us now. I've apologized, but it didn't fix much. The damage was too deep. Our parents still think he was just a rebellious teen. They don't know I lied to them for years. I poisoned their relationship with him out of jealousy. I ruined the bond between a son and his parents. And no apology can restore that. I was a selfish kid, but he paid the price. Even now, when he visits for holidays, the tension is thick. I see the way he looks at me, like he's trying to forget, but can't. I don't blame him. Story 40. My roommate freshman year was awkward, quiet, and didn't really fit in. He had trouble making friends, and I wasn't exactly welcoming. I made fun of his clothes, his habits, even his laugh. I did it in front of others too, trying to seem cool. He started skipping meals, staying in the library late, and eventually stopped coming back to the dorm. Just left one day. I found out from the RA he had dropped out and gone home. I never saw him again. I don't even remember his name sometimes, just his face. I ruined his college experience because I was too insecure to accept someone different. I've made my peace with who I used to be, but I'll never forget the silence of that empty bed across the room. I wonder if he ever got another chance. I hope someone was kinder to him than I was. Story 41. My childhood friend and I started a small online business together after college. Things went well at first, but disagreements started piling up. I thought he wasn't doing enough. One night, I sent an email to all our clients from our shared account accusing him of fraud and mismanagement. I thought I was just venting, but it spread fast. We lost every client. He tried to defend himself, but no one listened. He had to shut everything down. I moved on to a new job. He never recovered. Last I heard, he was working night shifts at a warehouse. We haven't spoken since. I ruined a business and a friendship because I couldn't control my temper. I wanted to win the argument, and instead I destroyed everything we built. I don't know if I miss him or just the version of myself that wasn't so full of ego. Either way, I lost something too. I just don't talk about it. Story 42. In high school, my friend Emma came out to me as gay. She hadn't told anyone else. Not her parents, not even her boyfriend at the time. She was scared, and I promised to keep it to myself. But a few weeks later, during a fight with another friend, I blurted it out. Not maliciously, more like trying to win an argument. But that friend told others. And then the rumors spread like wildfire. Emma's boyfriend broke up with her in front of everyone. Her parents found out through gossip, not from her. She was outed, humiliated, and terrified. She ended up switching schools. We never spoke again. I didn't mean to ruin her life. I just wasn't thinking. I've written letters I never sent. Apologies that sit in my notes app. I don't know where she is now. I hope she found peace. I hope she's living her truth with someone who treats her right. But I'll always be the person who shattered her trust. All because I couldn't control my mouth during a stupid fight. Story 43. In middle school, there was a kid named Marcus who had a stutter. He was quiet and kind, but an easy target. One day during a class presentation, he froze mid-sentence. The silence stretched. I started laughing. Loud. Everyone followed. He tried to finish but gave up and sat down, red-faced and trembling. The laughter didn't stop for weeks. We made memes, repeated his stutter back to him in the halls. He stopped showing up. A few months later, his parents pulled him from school. We never saw him again. At the time, I thought it was just playground teasing. But now, as an adult, I know better. I wasn't just laughing, I was leading the cruelty. I think about Marcus more than I'd like to admit. I've searched for him online but never found anything. Maybe he changed his name. Maybe he wants to forget us. If he ever hears this, I want him to know. I'm sorry. I was cruel for the sake of a laugh. It wasn't funny. It was cowardly. And I'll never forgive myself for it. Story 44. We dated during college. Young, reckless love. We were both 20. She got pregnant and I panicked. I begged her not to keep it. I told her it would ruin our lives, that we weren't ready. I said things I regret. She cried for days before finally agreeing to terminate. A week after, she stopped returning my calls. Later, her roommate told me she dropped out, moved back home, and started therapy. I tried to pretend we were both responsible for the decision, but deep down I know I cornered her emotionally. I didn't hold her hand through it. I pushed her there. I don't know if she ever wanted to forgive me. I don't know if she even should. Years later, I still wonder what would have happened if I just listened instead of panicking. Sometimes we ruin people not with violence, but with the sheer force of our fear. I didn't hit her. I didn't leave her. But I broke something sacred anyway. Story 45. Freshman year of high school, my friend group decided to pick on this quiet kid named Oliver. He smelled a little, wore the same hoodie every day, and mostly kept to himself. They called him Trash Bag and left cruel notes in his locker. I didn't participate, but I watched. I laughed. I said nothing. One day, he didn't come to school. Then a week passed. Then 2. We found out he'd attempted suicide. He survived, but he never came back. His family moved. I'll never forget the look on our principal's face when she told our class. I wasn't the ringleader. I didn't write the notes. But I stood by and did nothing. That silence makes me just as guilty. I've tried to be better since then. Called out bullying, spoken up when it's hard, but it always feels like I'm trying to make up for what I didn't do when it really mattered. I hope Oliver's okay. I hope he found people who saw his value. I didn't, and I'll always live with that. Story 46. My cousin got into a fight outside a bar. The other guy was hurt badly, broken jaw, fractured ribs. My family begged me to testify that it was self-defense. It wasn't. I was there. I saw my cousin throw the first punch. But I was 19, scared, and felt pressured. I said what they wanted me to. He got off with probation. The victim had thousands in medical bills and never got justice. I saw him once at a grocery store. He didn't recognize me, but I recognized the limp. I wanted to say something, anything, but I walked away. My cousin still acts like he did nothing wrong. He brags about beating the case. It makes me sick. I told a lie under oath and helped a violent man escape consequences. I ruined someone else's chance at closure, all to protect someone who didn't deserve it. I try to live right now, but that moment follows me like a shadow. Every time I hear the word justice, I feel like a fraud.